Statue. That's the word one British newspaper reached for. Not slow, not off form. Statue. Like something that used to move and simply doesn't anymore. June 17th, 2026. 90 minutes on the pitch. 3 shots, 0 on target. Portugal draw 1-1 with a team playing its first World Cup match in 52 years. By full time, he isn't just being criticized. He's being buried, live, in real time, by people who get paid to have opinions about football for a living. One post reads, "There's literally nothing a 41-year-old can do anymore." Thousands agree with it within the hour. 6 days later, same city, same stadium, he becomes the first man in the history of the World Cup to score in 6 different tournaments. Not Pelé, not Maradona, not Messi. Him. 144 hours, 2 headlines, same man? This isn't really a story about a football match in Texas. It's about a question that's followed him since he was a child. Sent away from his family to a city where he knew nobody. Why does total self-belief sound like genius from some men and arrogance from him? Here's what's strange about that week in Houston. It wasn't new. It wasn't even rare. It was the latest turn of a wheel that has been spinning on schedule for almost 2 decades. 2018, he's 33. He leaves Real Madrid, the club he just won 3 straight Champions Leagues with for Juventus. The verdict from the football world is near unanimous. This is a man managing his decline, cashing out before the cliff. He scores 21 goals and adds 9 assists in his first Serie A season. Juventus win the league. Fast forward to the summer of 2024. He's 39 now, Euro 2024. For the first time in his career at a major tournament, he goes the entire competition without scoring a single goal. He's mocked for crying on camera after missing a penalty. Pundits openly question whether Portugal would be better off without him. His response given to his old Manchester United teammate Rio Ferdinand is almost bored in its familiarity. It's much easier to criticize than appreciate what you really have. And then sharper, if you speak good, it doesn't sell. You have to speak bad. He wasn't wrong about the mechanism. He was the leading scorer in the history of men's international football. He'd scored 60 goals the season before. None of that was the headline. The headline was always the same headline. Is this finally the year it ends? It wasn't last time. It wasn't the time before that. By the math alone, you'd think the headline would retire before he does. Now, here's the part of the story that almost nobody examines closely enough. For 15 years, Ronaldo has existed inside a frame that wasn't entirely his own making. The villain half of a rivalry that football media built brick by brick, almost from the moment he and Lionel Messi became contemporaries. It wasn't really a rivalry in the way Ali Frazier was a rivalry. They rarely spoke about each other with hostility. They played for different countries, different clubs for most of their careers. What actually happened is that 2 genuinely historic players emerged at the same time with comparable numbers. And the football media needed a story more interesting than 2 great players exist, so they built one. Messi got cast as the humble genius, quiet, reserved, almost shy with the ball, doing all his talking. Ronaldo got cast as the other half of that equation, almost by elimination, confident, loud, temperamental. Once you have your hero, you need your foil. You can watch that exact machine working in real time this tournament. The day after Messi scored a hat trick against Austria, a British paper ran a piece directly comparing the two, concluding Portugal had been given a reminder of why Cristiano Ronaldo should not be in theirs. Same sport, same week. One man's brilliance was framed as proof of the other man's decline. Ronaldo didn't choose to play the villain in this story. He was cast as one by an industry that had already decided what role it needed him to play before he ever opened his mouth. So what do you do when an industry decides you're the villain year after year for 2 decades? You could shrink, get quieter, try to talk your way out of the role. Ronaldo did the opposite. He went all the way in. 2008, a journalist asks him to name the 3 best players on the planet. He doesn't hesitate. I am the first, second, and third. 2012, booed by a stadium full of fans after a Champions League win, asked why, he doesn't flinch. I'm good looking, rich, and a great footballer. He says they're jealous. He offers no other explanation because in his mind, none is needed. There's a phrase he's repeated across interviews for years, almost like a personal motto. Your love makes me strong, your hate makes me unstoppable. Here's the psychological question worth sitting with. Is that arrogance or is that armor? Confidence that gets attacked for 2 decades doesn't usually get quieter. It calcifies. It gets louder, more absolute, more performative. Not necessarily because the person enjoys being hated, but because total certainty is the only version of self-belief that can survive constant, public, relentless doubt. The criticism didn't create his self-belief, but it's hard to argue the criticism didn't shape the shape that self-belief eventually took. Here's what almost never makes it into that clip. Though this is a boy who, still a child, was sent away from his family in Madeira to a football academy on the mainland to live among strangers because his talent was too obvious to keep at home. A boy whose family was poor enough that 4 kids shared one cramped bedroom. A teenager who was diagnosed almost by accident with an irregular heartbeat, serious enough that it could have ended his career before it began. He had heart surgery. He was back training within days because stopping was never really presented to him as an option. And a 20-year-old who 2 years into his Manchester United career sat with his father in a London hospital and watched alcoholism finally take his liver and then take his life. He said many times since that he wishes his father had lived long enough to see what came after. You don't build a personality like I am the first, second, and third in comfort. You build it in rooms where nobody was coming to save you, and the only voice telling you that you'd make it was your own. He's said some version of this more than once, almost like a personal motto. Your love makes me strong, your hate makes me unstoppable. That's not a brand slogan. That's a survival strategy that happened to also win 5 Ballon d'Ors. Now, it would be dishonest to stop the story here, because sometimes that same armor doesn't protect him. Sometimes it's the thing that actually hurts him. November 2022, Manchester United. In an explosive interview with Piers Morgan, Ronaldo says he feels betrayed by the club. He says he has no respect for his manager, Erik ten Hag. Within days, his contract is terminated by mutual consent. His second spell at United ending not with a farewell tour, but with a statement and a door closing. His own former teammate Antonio Valencia called the interview shameful. Sky Sports' own football writers, reviewing the footage afterward, made an argument worth repeating here, that the same total self-belief which built his career was, by that point, the very thing stopping him from accepting that the story had to change. This is the uncomfortable nuance most in defense of Ronaldo videos skip entirely. The same trait that makes a 41-year-old scorer in a 6th World Cup is the trait that 4 years earlier made it impossible for him to leave a football club with grace. Confidence isn't a virtue that only ever helps you. Sometimes the thing that makes you unbreakable is the same thing that makes you unbendable. So here's the real question this video has actually been asking. Why does this exact trait, declaring yourself the best, refusing to perform humility for the cameras, treating doubt as fuel instead of feedback, read as inspiring from some athletes and as arrogance from him? Part of the answer really is about him. He has, at points, been graceless. The Manchester United exit was real. The friction with managers across 2 decades is real. None of that disappears just because some of the criticism is excessive. But part of the answer is about us, about which kinds of confidence we've quietly agreed to find likable, and which kinds make us uncomfortable enough that we reach for arrogant instead of sitting with what it actually is. There's a particular kind of cruelty in telling a 41-year-old he's finished tournament after tournament and then asking him to disprove it all over again every single time. Most people would have gone quiet by now. Most people would have started agreeing with the doubters just to make the noise stop. The boy sent away from his family as a child never did. The teenager who had heart surgery and was back training days later never did. The man who's heard "he's finished" on a loop for almost 20 years and kept arriving anyway, never did. Maybe that's not arrogance at all. Maybe it's the most stubborn, most exhausting, most remarkable form of self-respect left in modern sport. The refusal to let 2 decades of being told he's finished change a single word of what he believes about himself. He said it himself, standing on a pitch in Houston 6 days after being called a statue. "I always arrive. Sooner or later, I'm there." Whether you love him or can't stand him, he's been saying exactly that, in exactly that tone, since before some of the people criticizing him this month were even born. This is the third man. We don't do hot takes. We don't do highlight reactions. We try to understand the human being underneath the headline, even the ones the headline's already decided how to feel about. If this changed how you see him even slightly, subscribe and tell me in the comments, arrogance or armor?